AUWC, Reverend Moon drew this diagram on the board, then erased it and started again when the video was set up and more people had arrived. Later on in his speech, he drew the diagram in the air with his hand and talked about the concepts of love, life, lineage, and conscience.
Wealth, 맥혀본다고 무형이야, 무형이야. 무형? 물질되면 고쳐가야 되는 게 무형이야, 무형.
This center is invisible.
그래서 사랑도 보이지 않아.
Therefore, that's why we cannot see love.
생명도 볼 수 없어.
Life,
리니지,
lineage,
칸세나 시대.
concept, conscience.
그러면 사랑과 생명과 양심과 혈통이 보이지 않는 중심이 어디에 있겠느냐?
So, center of the life, love, lineage, and conscience, that invisible center is right here.
그래, 사랑에 생명의 사랑이 달리고 사랑의 혈통이 달리고 혈통의 양심이 달려 한 자리야, 한 자리.
So, life is attached by love, attached by lineage, and a conscience. This is one center point, actually, one point. Looks, we are talking about four different concepts, but same.
양심 모이라면 호리잔탈이 호리잔탈.
Our conscience functions horizontally.
호리잔탈. 응? 거기에 모이라면 리니지도 버티칼.
Lineage is
라이브도
vertical.
버티칼.
Life is vertical.
러브도 버티칼.
Love is vertical.
소생장성 완성이야.
Like a formation, growth, and perfection level.
양심 기준을 제일 중요시할 것은 뭐냐면 혈통이야, 혈통.
So therefore, when it comes to our standard of our conscience, the basic point, the key point is our lineage
생명이야.
and then life,
그다음에 사랑이야.
and then love.
That's the love most high level.
Love is the
Top
top
God
of
praise.
this vertical line.
Emotion is what makes a person believe in the word. We speak of intellect, emotion, and will. However, emotion comes first. A great artist must emerge who can detonate man's original emotions and sing in praise of all creation with the sentiments of original emotion. A great scientist of emotion and religion must emerge. All quotes with dates are those of Reverend Myung Moon. Original Emotion Smiles of Reverend and Mrs. Moon by the Hudson River. Reflections on Ugly or Beautiful. God has the perfection of men's qualities and women's qualities within his own essentialities. The qualification of absolute beauty exists within God, and if we were able to see God, then we would never be satisfied with each other. If we looked at God's perfection and then looked back at the human level, we would think of ourselves as being ugly. If men and women were to analyze each other's features, they could find 1,000 deficiencies. Consider how ugly men and women might ever get together. How to get together. Men and women would never get together if they only observed each other's difficulties. Harmony between men and women would be impossible. However, there is a magic power which more than offsets the shortcomings of men and women, a kind of veil that can make men and women completely blind to each other's shortcomings. Such a power is needed not only between men and women, but between God and man. If God were just looking at man from an analytical point of view, he would soon be fed up. God has no more interest in looking at ugly men and women than you do. So there must be something between God and men that even blinds the eyes of God, making everything look sweet. The famous picture of the farmer and his wife is American Gothic, painted in 1930, the first year of the Great Depression, by Grant Wood. His models were actually his dentist and his sister. What's this? A 7-position foundation where the output of stage 1 becomes the input of stage 2? From the 2003 Korean Ambassadors of Peace Manual? Notice the original mind in the center, from which come emotion, intellect, and will. And the original mind is the result of a 4-position foundation with God and the life mind and the body mind. Let's review some Christology, Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and the dual characteristics of the Logos. Logos is Greek for rational principle or the Word. The Bible indicates that the Logos is an object partner to God, engaged in a reciprocal relationship with Him. Since God, the subject partner of the Logos, exists with dual characteristics, the Logos as his object partner should also be composed of dual characteristics. If the Logos were without dual characteristics, all things made through it would not be composed of dual characteristics. Adam and Eve, the embodied object partners of God in image, were created separately out of the dual characteristics of the logos. Logos corresponds to original mind. Basically, this diagram is the same as that of the original mind, with different names that correspond to each other. But where are yang and yin? They appear at the second stage of the process of creation, the blessing of marriage. Here they are, yang and yin, in the ideal family, representing the man and the woman. Some math. If we add the two-stage process diagrams of the first and second blessings, we get a 10-position foundation. Another variation on the theme. Sunsung and Hyungsung, mind and body, each have yang and yin, which when harmonized, centered on God's love, produce beauty. The two-stage process of the third great blessing, dominion over things in creation. Stacking the two-stage process diagrams of the three great blessings produces a 13-position foundation that illustrates how love, life, lineage, and conscience map to the human body. Three sets of parents. We have three sets of parents. Nature is our first parent. Our physical parents are our second parents. And God is our third and most important parent of heart and love. Meditation before prayer and original mind. Nonetheless, in the present religious life, the most serious problem is conceptual speculation and faith. For example, people normally try to pray based on the stimulation that they feel as they imagine the pain and misery that Jesus felt when he was dying on the cross for our sake. Yet, you should not do this. You should pray, but first you must call upon your original mind and develop the appropriate attitude of the heart to pray. When this is done, the Holy Father, the Holy Son, and the Holy Spirit can connect to us through that foundation of heart. If this kind of relationship is forged with us, then our bodies will naturally and gracefully respond to this. How to unify religions through emphasizing love, life, lineage, and conscience. The role of God's new religion is not to combat other religions, but to be compatible with the truth in them all, and thus link them all together, uniting them into one. This religion will not only influence the nation of its origin, but will embrace all nations and cultures, having the power to unite not only the people from one homogeneous culture, but those from all cultures. This is the kind of religion God is ultimately seeking to establish. The Korean flag. The nation of origin of HSAUWC is Korea. Cultural sphere of Confucianism and Taoism. Notice the Korean flag over here. Love, life, lineage, and conscience map to the process of the four-position foundation and serve as the glue of the cosmic family of the 8 trigrams. The cosmic family of 8 trigrams is parallel to the 8 members of Adam's family and the 8 members of Noah's family. The Tao and the 8 trigrams are the basis of the Tao Te Ching, the Book of Changes. Notice that the Oriental character for the number 9 is the center of the matrix, representing the place where the 8 trigrams harmonize. The number 9 represents old yang, or the father. The Buddhist cultural sphere centers on Buddha's enlightenment, the experience of the original nature of the one mind and living for the sake of others. The Hindu cultural sphere. The Om is the most holy symbol of Hinduism and is an alternative representation of the four-position foundation. The cultural sphere of Sufi Islam. Mayor Baba had many mystical experiences and from the age of 31 decided to remain silent. He wrote God Speaks using an alphabet board. Now we have the Arab bloc, which is equipped with a form of religion confronting the 2 great camps of democracy and communism. What does this signify? They have formed a bloc with a religious ideology and Islamic civilization modeled after the ancient Saracen Empire. God's providential purpose of bringing humanity into unity through a religious ideology is thus revealed. In the end of this restorational providence, this sort of operation will inevitably take place. If the communist camp breaks down after having fought with the democratic camp, what is going to happen? There are more prospects for the various nations in the communist camp to be absorbed into the Arab bloc rather than the democratic camp. We must realize this. A united world centered upon one purpose and ideology must be built upon this earth today. What then must happen in the democratic camp? A religion equipped with an ideology centered on God's Shimjung, a religion of love for human beings, who are God's embodiments, must emerge. This religion must represent all doctrines and assertions. Human beings today are not aware of the fact that the last days are approaching when such a religion will come forth. When will a religion appear with a unificationist ideology that will enable the democratic world to embrace the Islamic camp? December 14th, Yad He Vav He, the letters of the most holy name of God, along with the 10 holy emanations of the tree of life that map to the 10 commandments, represent unification thought and principle of creation of the Jewish cultural sphere. The Christian cultural sphere centers on Jesus, who emerged from the Jewish cultural sphere. Jesus represents the ideal of the tree of life and promised to return to fulfill the unfulfilled will of God, to build the kingdom of heaven on the earth. About the Trinity. To accomplish this kind of task, the Holy Father, the Holy Son, and the Holy Spirit have been at work for a long time. Among this Trinity, the Holy Spirit has been working to guide humanity toward the truth. So it is written in the Bible, when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth. John 16:13. As you can see in her work, the Holy Spirit is in charge of the mission of truth. Jesus, the Holy Son, is in charge of the mission of the champion of life. Therefore he has said, I am the way, and the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by me. John 14:6. Jesus came to rectify this will of life. Then what are we ultimately to seek in our course of finding life through the truth? It is none other than love. We must reach the love of God, to say nothing of the love of the Holy Spirit and Jesus. If we manifest the nature of the Trinity from this perspective, then we can say that the Holy Father is love, the Holy Son is life, and the Holy Spirit is truth. Because truth, life, and love are like one family, love and life must follow truth, and life and truth must also follow love. The same thing is true for life. There, love and truth must also follow. Why are truth, life, and love connected in that way? As you know, in order for one being to exist, centering on that being, there has to be above and below, front and back, and left and right. Anything that exists cannot liberate itself from these three realms. This is the basic structure of existence. Although these three things come together to form one united shape, if the force moves in the opposite direction, then forces that are different from the original ones will appear. Accordingly, although God is originally a being of love, life, and truth, after the fall, when human beings could not form the balanced triangular structure of love, life, and truth, God could not exercise his powers. You must understand this. Father, while we feel the gravity of the responsibility of the person who is giving, at the same time we also realize that the responsibility of the person who is receiving is just as great. And we learn that the responsibility of the receiver is greater than that of the giver. Although giving takes place in one moment, we know that receiving must take place in consideration of eternity. Please allow us to be able to safeguard for eternity that which we have received from heaven at that one time. Please allow us to preserve for eternity the life that we received at that one time. And please allow us to be able to preserve for eternity the love that we received at that one time. We also wish and hope earnestly that you guide us to understand that only when we can do this can we become true children of God. This having been fulfilled, please let us become the children who can find the key of truth and the key of life and love, with which we can open the remaining door of the universal truth, life, and love, and in doing so alleviate the internal sufferings of God, who is the center of the universe. 1957. You may be a university student working hard to get good grades in your courses, but the scope of academic learning is like a peanut compared to the mission you are called to fulfill. All the knowledge of the world is nothing in comparison to this. I am offering knowledge of the meaning of life, of the tree of life. Presidents of nations and the royalty of this world will have to learn this and follow it. When you read my book of sermons, God's Will in the World, you can see that I have spoken the truth plainly and boldly. There are no more symbols or parables. I have set everything before you. The truth has emerged. This is real knowledge, the knowledge that you need. Who decided the heavenly four-position foundation? This is God's original principle. No human being devised it. Without going this route, no one enters the kingdom of heaven. Conclusion and focus for further investigation. Briefly, John 14:6, in which Jesus answers Thomas, explaining that I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by me, relates to the Trinity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit as love, life, and lineage, or truth, which stands as the central point of conscience, which acts horizontally to inspire each person. This, in reality, is identical to the Baptist doctrine of conscience that defeated the divine right of kings, leading to the American Revolution and the founding of the United States of America in 1776. See Thomas Jefferson and the Virginia Act for establishing religious freedom at the website below.